Hey kids, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I am Amanda. So today for this video, I don't really have much of a direction for it. I just kind of want to talk. So I was just thinking about like villains and how we come up with villains. So I think I've mentioned before that I have been working lately on an erotic romance, and I was thinking about like the antagonist and the conflict, and the thing is, like, I came up with some pretty good conflict, but it's not really, like, none of it has anything to do with outside forces. And if it does, it's more like a societal thing, or an organization thing. It's kind of hard to explain, I guess, without you knowing the plot. But my two main characters are, like, A-list actors, and so their conflict is... You know, even though I have experience writing erotic romance with fanfic, none of those, like, very rarely have they ever been big enough stories. They're usually like shorts, you know? But some of them, not all of them, but like a very small number of them actually grew into like a full-length story where there could be some conflict, like some big conflict. But I was thinking about, like, would there be an antagonist for this story that I'm working on? Because, like, obviously the Eldest Witch, like, the villain or the antagonist in that, for that story was not, I wouldn't say it was easy to come up with, because it's, for sure, it's certainly very layered. Without giving too much away, you know, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye for the Eldest Witch. So it felt, I guess because it was like a fantasy genre, I felt a lot freer to basically just let my imagination go wild, of course, to a certain degree, because it still has to be somewhat, you know, realistic and blah, blah, blah. But when coming up with like an antagonist for something like, you know, an erotic romance, or even just a straight up romance, like something that is not sci-fi or mystery or fantasy, or, you know, like genres that typically have huge stakes. You know what I mean? With romance, it's typically lower stakes, but it works because for that type of story, the hero, if you would, the feature of the story is the romance. It's not the plot. But even still, man, like, I feel like you need an antagonist. You need somebody to, like, root against. I don't really know where I'm going with this, I'm gonna be honest. I'm, like, literally sitting here just, like, spewing nonsense. I don't even think spewing is a word, but whatever, we'll go with it. But anyway, so, like, I was thinking about it, and, like, I really want to have an antagonist. Like, I don't want to just create a conflict situation. I've thought of plenty of those. I mean, plenty. But I want a person. I want an antagonist that, you know, people can root against. That, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of enjoy writing villains. I think because I can express whatever demented thought crosses my mind, and, you know, I obviously, even if I didn't have a villain to write them through, I wouldn't act out on 98% of what I think. But I mean, it gives me that freedom to be able to let, you know, like, show a darker side, or indulge a darker side. I think most writers feel that way. So I was thinking, like, how would I come up with, because I don't even think calling it a villain is, like, accurate for like that kind of genre. For, you know, the romance genre, I don't think a villain is an accurate title. I'm, like, more of an antagonist, more of a creator of wrinkles, if you would, a thorn in my side, and a thorn in my character's side, as it were. So I started thinking, all right, how am I going to come up with an antagonist that is evil in a way that fits the genre? So, of course, I went to the wonderful world of YouTube, and of course, I wound up on the weird side of YouTube, and of course, I got a plethora of ideas. Pretty much what I thought was, okay, what do I think is evil in the world? Or not even what do I think is evil in the world? Just like what behaviors have I witnessed or heard about that would classify someone as pretty antagonistic? So I kind of want to share that with you because it's something that in my writing journey, in my writing process, I've kind of just discovered along the way, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to think of this. So I started thinking about my antagonist. I pretty much was creating a character, right? I was creating a character from basically scratch. The only thing tangible that I really had as a descriptor for this character would be that he or she, I'm not sure whether, I'm leaning more towards he, but that's neither here nor there, that this person was going to be the main source of conflict for my story. And then I started thinking about trying to construct his personality and like where would a conflicting to my character's mentality, what kind of person would fit that best, or what kind of personality would naturally not clash, naturally antagonize my main characters, my two heroes. I don't even know if any of this is making sense. Honest to God, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know if this is making sense. So anyway, I started trying to come up with some things about this person's life. And I thought, well, I started thinking about like all the extreme behaviors. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen extreme behaviors either in your real life. Maybe you've seen a YouTube video where there was like some extreme ass behavior that you were like, extra. So I started thinking about that and thinking about how, a lot of the topics in these videos, like a lot of the situations are typically connected to either something political or something religious. And there are, of course, those extreme behaviors that, you know, aren't in those two categories. But I did realize that religion and politics is often something that really divides people. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, are you for real, Skis, going to like introduce a political or religious conflict in your erotic romance? Like, really? No, that's absolutely not happening. A, because no, and B, because it has nothing to do. It would literally be an addition. Like, it doesn't really fit into, I mean, I guess it does in a way fit into the world that I'm writing about, but in a bigger sense, when I'm talking about like the themes of the story, it doesn't fit. But knowing, like, okay, so knowing this character's political affiliation, right? Me as the writer, knowing what their political affiliation is, or knowing what their religion is a good stepping point, because for me, I realized that something like your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, more often than not, those beliefs, whatever they may be, are ingrained in us. You know, that there's stuff that we have been throughout our entire lives that have shaped that view, right? So I started thinking about like how those affiliations, again, either religious beliefs or political beliefs, could impact other areas of a person's life, including how they treat other people, including how they receive information or criticism, how they deal with business on the regular. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm still building the character. Again, I am leaning more towards it being a gentleman. It is going to be, the character is a studio executive. He's the studio head, like he runs the movie studio. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it a man. I'm leaning more towards that anyway. I mean, I guess I could really up the game a little bit and make it a woman, and you know, do some, you know, and maybe interesting commentary on you know, the genders in Hollywood and how, you know, everything has been playing out, just as far as, you know, the goings-ons and how women are treated both how they're paid, how, sometimes they can be harassed, etc., etc. I think I could do some interesting commentary with a woman studio head. Then again, I could do the same commentary probably with a man, but do it more directly, I guess you could say. Anyway, I don't really know what the point of this video is. I wanted to share this with you guys because maybe I'm thinking about it too much, to be honest with you. But yeah, like, I don't know. It was new ways to come up with an antagonist. Like, what are their political beliefs? What are their religious beliefs? And neither one of those things ever has to come into play in the actual story. I really believe they don't. I mean, I would imagine that you could probably, like, make reference to it, but it wouldn't really, necessarily fit into the story. And it's really more for the writer than it is for the reader. So it wouldn't, you know what I mean? But when you think about it, depending on what your belief is, there's like a certain expectation of behavior associated with whatever political, religious side, like wherever you are, whatever your beliefs are. There's usually like I don't know if I want to call it a stereotypical, but I guess an atypical type of person that believes XYZ. And of course, that's not always, the case. Honestly, I mean, I would argue that the majority of the time, that is not the case. It's just that the people who are atypical, do exhibit that atypical behavior are the loudest. That's pretty much what I think. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, I don't even know if this makes sense. Does this make sense? I'm trying to like explain what I'm thinking because I've been doing research. I fell into this rabbit hole about a week ago for a video that I really want to do. But I'm not so sure that I'm gonna post. I don't know. I don't know. It's something that's been on my mind for a while. And I finally decided to start researching it this past week, and my God. But my point is that I discovered something very, very, very unsettling. Anyway, my point was that, when you're coming up with an antagonist, I feel like most people, at least this is just me, maybe it is just me, but most people, I think when they try to come up with an antagonist, they try to think of like something truly freaking evil, like a death threat, or they always go to, as a default, making the stakes high. But when you're writing a story that there's no expectation of high stakes to begin with, that can be a little bit difficult. Like, where do you draw the line? Like, how far do you take this? I mean, and that's not to say that there aren't romance novels with high stakes. There are definitely plenty of those. But typically, when you think of a romance, you think low stakes. Because again, the focus is the relationship. It's not necessarily the plot. Or the outside plot, I should say. The plot is the romance. The outside plot is like more of a B plot, if that makes sense. So it doesn't make sense for those stakes to be as high or even higher than the stakes of the romance. But I do think it's interesting how a lot of the time outside forces can impact our relationships. So I guess I just kind of wanted to put that out there to you guys, something that I have recently discovered something that I have recently realized, I think is a better word for it than discovered. But something that I have recently realized, and I kind of wondered if you guys had realized it too. What are some of the ways that you guys come up with, dare I say villains, antagonists? What are some of the ways that you come up with your foil to your main characters? Do you guys kind of base it on the plot? You whatever the plot actually is, you kind of go off of there and branch off and try to cause a wrinkle in that plot? Or do you make it more about the character, kind of like what I've been talking about in this video, make it more about their character, their personality? And it may, put a wrinkle in the plot anyway, but it's because of the type of person they are, not necessarily because you need it to happen, because you need the story to be interesting, if that makes sense. So I think it's a totally legitimate way to come up with an antagonist. I mean, certainly, I would imagine it would be a great way to come up with an antagonist who is three-dimensional and not just like a flat, a flat static character that just wants to, ruin my MC's life because they're bad, And like throughout my writing journey, that's something that I had to learn. From my fanfic days, because I mean, I think in fanfic, especially for the younger writers who are just starting out, it's very easy to write an antagonist or a villain who is just evil because he or she is just a shit person. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to do that. And it's weirdly a lot easier to write evil words like when that's the mentality, of that, when that's your mentality about your antagonist. But to get out of that and to really do your best to make them as three-dimensional as possible, make them the hero of their own story, in other words, is something that I, have learned throughout the years. And now I feel like that's evolving. I feel like, there are a lot of different shades of evil in the world, if that makes sense. And some of it I don't even think I would classify as evil, just as far as the definition of evil goes. But I mean, certainly divisive. There are certain things that if a person holds them, dear, or I don't know where the hell I'm going with this. My point is that people are assholes in all types of different ways. So, looking at things, trying to build a character based on things that are like uber divisive, like, again, political beliefs, religious beliefs, how they grew up is another big one that I think a lot of writers have used. They had a shit childhood, or the MC like inadvertently screwed them over when they were like 2. Looking at you, 50 Shades of Grey, looking at you. I think that's a really good way to build a three-dimensional character, and a character that people would potentially love to hate. Those are my favorite types of villains, honestly. Those are my favorite villains, the villains that I freaking just fucking love to hate. Cersei Lannister, holy shit. I mean, she wrote the book on love to hate, I'm just saying. So now I kind of want to throw it right back at you guys. How do you guys come up with your villains? Do you come up with them as a character, or do you use the plot to come up with the conflict, and by proxy your villain or your antagonist's role therein, and build them that way? Or do you build them the way you build your MCs? You build them, with their personality, or however it is that you build your MCs. I don't think we've ever had a discussion about how we build character. That would be fun sometime. But yeah, I don't know. I want to know if like I'm late to the party as usual, because I usually am. Like literally, you're talking to the girl who didn't read Harry Potter until like 2015. What the fuck? Talk about late to the party. I freaking loved them too, just so you know. And that's all I got for you today, kids. That's literally my random... Those are literally my random thoughts. If you have not subscribed to my channel and would like to, the button is right there. Or maybe it's right there. I don't know. I'm not really sure which way I'm pointing. It's there. It's like someplace there. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell so that you get notifications every time I post a new video. I post every Wednesday. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.